we are starting to see it so much potential from a business standpoint to really accommodate this shift of consciousness and do everything in the best possible way.
Originally from just outside of North London in England, Joey's first break in fashion came in Melbourne, Australia, as an accessories designer for Crumpler. He has since worked as a technical bags developer for MEC and most recently as the accessories lead for Tentree, where he worked with factories across Vietnam and China. On a business trip to China in 2018, Joey met with the factory in Guangzhou and the conversation to start a green factory model together developed. Joey is now the founder and co-owner of Veshin factory in China, where he and his partners are on a mission to move the fashion accessories industry to conscious, sustainable vegan production. Joey and I met on Clubhouse and quickly realised we have aligned experiences and views and grew up nearby to each other as well. My school was just around the corner from Joey's family home. We've since become friends, sharing podcast episodes and inspiring connections, and are both looking at changing the fashion industry in our own ways. In this episode, we talk about Joey's strong gut feeling that pulled him to Guangzhou in China, which changed his life. We talk about plant-based leather and the circular economy changing fashion, and how Joey is helping his green factory blossom. You're listening to Going Conscious, the podcast where we discover new ways to live a more conscious life of fulfillment and freedom. Each week, I speak with entrepreneurs, academics, and changemakers who have made big transformations, left unfulfilling lives behind, and found meaning in this new world where purpose drives success. Let's get inspired to live our unique journeys to the fullest. Let's explore the impact we want to make and deepen our understanding of ourselves, each other, and this beautiful world around us. Live your freedom. I'm your host, Nikki Trott. In this episode, we talk about Joey's adventures around the world, how he removed the clouds over his intuition, how to discover the guidance of transcendental meditation, or TM, to go back to yourself. We talk about veganism as a state of consciousness, how to learn to enjoy the ride and not get frustrated, and how to wake up personally to grow consciousness as a whole. Now let's go to our conversation. Joey, hello and welcome to Going Conscious.
Hey Nikki, it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to speak with you. So we're both from North London, from so close to each other.
Yeah, it's super funny.
It's hilarious, yes. And we met on Clubhouse, and now I know what you're doing as an ecopreneur, but I know that that's been a real journey for you. And you've come from fashion design, and before being an accessories designer, you were a carpenter, and you've been all around the world. So I would love to hear a little bit about your journey and what led you to connecting your work with your sense of purpose.
So, as we just said, I'm from North London originally. At 18, I moved to Australia. My best friend is Australian, so I took a gap year out before university and went down to Oz to kind of first time really exploring myself as an adult. So that was an incredible experience. Came back to the UK, went to university, studied industrial design, and my third year at university, I had a chance to move back to Australia. So I moved to Melbourne, and Australia is just an incredible country. There's a lot of love there for me and a lot of great people. And I said to myself, I want to live my life here. But I had to move back to the UK and finish university. And after university, I couldn't go back to Australia because it was very complicated with visas, and I had a fresh slate in Canada. So I moved to Canada, and I was in Canada for 8 years. And with Canada, I started off as a carpenter for 4 years, and then I became a resident, and I wanted to get back into fashion because in Melbourne in Australia, I worked as a backpack designer, and that's kind of where I found my interest in design. My degree was in design, and combining that with my backpack experience, I wanted to get back into fashion in Canada, and that was very challenging, but I was very fortunate to finally kind of get back into a big company. And I was on a contract at this company, incredible business, and then that came to an end fairly quickly, which was unfortunate. But I was able to join a startup called Tentree, and Tentree took me on as an accessories designer. And Tentree was a company that planted 10 trees. Every product they sold, extremely passionate about the environment and sustainability. And at this point in my life, these were the kind of things that I was into, and I was able to find a company that was reflective of me as an individual. And with Tentree, I was working across Vietnam and China, managing factories, and then everything that came next was pretty crazy. But it all ended up in China. But here I am now in the UK, but meant to be moving to China soon.
Yeah. So what happened? What went crazy when you went to China? I'd love to hear about that and how you then created the next step on your path.
So where I was in my life was it was in 2018 where I was going out to China for my second business trip. And the first time I went out there, I traveled with like my boss, but this second time they were like, he knows what he's doing now. He can go out on his own. So the purpose of this trip, one of the goals was to find a new wallet supplier, so like wallet and purses. And our factory at the time wasn't they were a luxury leather goods factory. So from a sustainability standpoint, there's always kind of a lot of clashes with kind of those kind of cultures of working with luxury manufacturing when you're trying to do something sustainable. So the purpose of this trip was to find this new supplier. And I went to Vietnam first, and looked at 2 other factories in Vietnam, found a really good factory, and the plan was to go from Vietnam to Guangzhou and go, hey, let's meet this factory in person, and basically told them we're going to move the business away, but do it in person. So where it all got crazy was I was in this Vietnamese airport in Ho Chi Minh City, and I haven't told this story to anyone just yet since the start of my career, but I was basically flying to Guangzhou. I had my ticket from Guangzhou to Shanghai, then Shanghai back to Vancouver, and I got to the check-in of China Southern Airlines, and she was like, "You can't get on this flight," and I'm like, "What do you mean I can't get on this flight?" She's like, "Basically, you're not allowed to get on this flight because in China, you're not allowed to fly to certain provinces, and you can't fly domestically within China." And to me, like traveling, and I'm sure you know as well, like it'd be like flying into Berlin, traveling to Munich and flying out of Munich, which is fine. But in China, you can't do that. So she was telling me, you can't do that. And I was just so confused. I was like, no, I need to get this flight. Like, I need to get on this flight. And she was like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, okay, so what do I do then? She's like, you need to change your flights. And I'm like, okay, so who do I speak to? And she's like, well, you're flying with Air Canada at the last part of your trip. You need to change your flight to leave from Guangzhou, cut out Shanghai, and fly back to Vancouver from Guangzhou. And I was like, okay, where's the Air Canada office? And she was like, well, there's no Air Canada office in this airport. And I'm like, you're not making my life any easier here. And at this point, I had obviously a couple of hours before my flight, so time wasn't a pressing thing, but I needed to figure this out. And I rung Air Canada on my phone. My phone wasn't working. My laptop wasn't working. And I was literally stuck. I was just like, I couldn't use my initiative anymore. I was just like, what do I do? So this Vietnamese guy, this guy working for the airline, gave me his phone. I rang Air Canada. I changed my flight from Guangzhou to fly to Beijing to fly back to Vancouver, just a connection. I paid like $1,000 extra. I sent my ticket to her, and then she turns around and she's like, "You can't do that." I'm like, okay, now I'm sweating. I'm like, I just paid $1,000 to change my flights, and I'm not allowed to do that either. She's like, you can't fly to Beijing because that's still flying domestically. And I'm like, well, it's just a connection. It's just a connecting flight. And then, I had to get back on the call with Air Canada again, and I changed my flights, and I flew from Guangzhou to Tokyo, so literally leaving China from Guangzhou. And at this point, she's like looking at me and she's tapping her wrist, being like, you're running out of time. I'm about to close the gates. Like, I've been on the phone for like an hour and a half. And I'm like, you can't close the gate because I've been here for an hour and a half. I just paid $1,000 and I'm sweating. I'm just like, this is ridiculous. And I changed my flight to go to Tokyo from Guangzhou and then back to Vancouver. She was like, I've closed the gate now. And I'm like, you can't close the gate. Literally, the receipt's coming in for this flight. So the receipt came in through my email. I showed it to her and she was like, okay, that's fine. This can work. So she put the system back up. I've never been in a situation before in all my traveling days where she basically hides. She like rang security and she like rushed me through the airport. I got my ticket. I got onto this plane, and I must have been a minute away from missing this flight. And I said to myself, I got onto the plane and I was just like, what on earth just happened in this airport? Like, that was just ridiculous. Like, I'd never been in this position in my life ever. And I got on this flight, and as I said, the whole purpose of this flight was to go to the city and to tell this factory that we're not working with them anymore. And I also had plans to meet with another factory. So when I arrived in Guangzhou, I met this other factory. They weren't a fit. So all this effort of trying to get to Guangzhou, within 5 minutes of meeting this new factory, I knew they weren't a good fit for us. Then the next day, I met with the factory that I was meant to, our current factory that I was meant to let go. And I met with them and I explained to them what had happened in the airports and how it's been such a crazy journey to get here. And then I explained to them that we're moving the business away. And the owner of this factory said, no, you can't move the business away. You need to keep the business here because I love the company. I love who you're working for. This guy was a converted Buddhist. And I was like, if you're a converted Buddhist, how can you work with animal leather? That makes no sense to me. And he explained that he's only become Buddhist in the last couple of years and he's really trying to practice this mindset. And I was like, wow, that's like unbelievable to finally meet someone in China. Because in the factory ownership side of things, it is tough meeting Chinese owners that really understand the planet and understand a bit more about consciousness and about the importance of loving themselves and these kind of things. And this guy, he had this incredible values, and he explained to me that he's basically trying to start this green factory. And I was just like, wow, it went from one thing to another. And I was like, this is incredible. Like, I've gone full circle here. The idea was to meet him, tell him we're moving the business away. And then all of a sudden, he's proposed to me this incredible project. And I said to him, I'd love to support him as a consultant. So we talked about it. I went back to my hotel that night, and I was just like, what is happening in this city? Like, I was so close, like sliding doors, like a minute away from missing this flight to the city. And now here I am, and I've met this incredible person who's basically told me to start joining his new venture. And I'm like, there's something happening here. Like, I was feeling his energy. I was feeling like this kind of sense of destiny. And I was like, this is mental. And then the next day we had a really amazing time in Guangzhou, and I saw the city. And I've never been the biggest fan of China and working in China, but in Guangzhou, I just felt this connection to the city. And I was just like, there's something happening here. There's something pushing me. My gut feeling was just like, was going like off. The alarms in my body was like, there's something happening here. And we had this incredible few days. And I decided to support him as a consultant, and I went back to Canada. So that was 2018, and then in 2019, I consulted for him for a year, and at the same time, I was pushing very hard for a promotion with the company I was working for, and I was really fighting the company and being like, well, there's nothing worse than being devalued and not being, you know what I mean? You're working for someone where your value isn't seen. And at the same time, this guy in China who I was consulting for was seeing my value, and this idea of this factory idea was blossoming. And over the course of a year, like, my gut feeling, you start to lose it because obviously naturally you're living back in another country, and you kind of forget what happened. But I just remember being like, something happened in that city, and I need to go back there to verify that gut feeling. So at the end of 2019, I guess this is when I started to find meditation. Are you keeping up? I mean, there's a lot going on in this story, Nikki.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm keeping up. So you've been
Okay.
consulting for a year and you now feel you're not valued in your job, and you need to really
Mm-hmm.
verify that gut feeling you got in Guangzhou. And you also discover meditation at this point, which I know has been key to your
Yeah.
journey. So we'd love to hear about what happens next and how you then created what you're working on now, and how meditation has been an important part of that.
Mm-hmm. So during 2019, I was consulting, and at this time in my life, I forgot to mention, in 2018, I came out of a very serious relationship. I sold my house, very complicated relationship, and a month later, that's when I went to China originally. So what happened in that airport literally came after a month after a serious breakup in my life. So things were changing. So in 2019, I randomly went down to San Diego on this trip, and it was again very serendipitous what happened to me in San Diego. I randomly met this psychic, and at this point in my life, I was really exploring myself. I was really exploring like who I was. I came out of this huge relationship, and I wanted to know a bit more about who I was. And I was starting to get into star signs, and I've always believed in the universe and spirituality, but I was starting to like see a lot of reasoning. Like I'm a Sagittarius, and I'm a fire sign. I'm a passionate person, and I was really looking into this kind of stuff. And I met this psychic in San Diego, and she asked me, she's like, what's your star sign? I'm like, Sagittarius. And she's like, well, your Chinese zodiac is a dragon. And I didn't know much about Chinese zodiacs and how they combine with Western astrology, but she explained to me a Sagittarius dragon is the most ambitious combination of all star signs and Western and Chinese zodiacs combined together. And she explained to me a Sagittarius dragon will either fly to success or they'll burn and crash. And it's up to you as an individual to choose, do you fly or do you just, collapse to the ground and just destroy yourself? And at this point in my life, what I was doing was internally, I was destroying myself. Like I was putting too much stress on myself. And I knew this idea in China, I knew for me to do that full time, I needed to be in a position in my life where I took all that stress out of my body and I was, operating at the highest state of consciousness. And I was hearing all this stuff from this lady, and she was telling me exactly who I was as a person without knowing anything about me. And then I went back to Canada. I started to explore what a Sagittarius dragon was and looking more into kind of the Chinese zodiacs. And I said to myself, let's go back to China. But at this point, I said I needed to equip myself with a tool to basically ensure that my intuition was operating at its highest. And I needed to remove all the clouds in my brain. And as I said, I was pushing very hard for this promotion, and I was pissing people off, and I was getting into trouble. And it wasn't like bad pissing people off. It was just like my intentions were good, but the way I was carrying myself was incorrect. I was just like, I was burnt out, I was stressed, and I said to myself, moving forward, I can't continue to operate like this. I know my intentions are good, I know my values are good, but I need to be able to manage the way I carry myself better. And then my brother, he found transcendental meditation about 6 months before. The reason why he found it was different reasons to me, but I saw what was happening with him as a brother and seeing him change through this journey of meditation. And I said to myself, that's probably what I need. And I've always been intrigued by meditation, and I've always thought that I needed a tool. I've always believed the brain is so powerful. We can do anything as long as we're in control of our mind. And I basically planned to go to China in December 2019. I had my best friend's sister's wedding in Australia, and what I did deliberately was I took the TM course. It's like a 4-day course in Vancouver. I learned TM, and then went on this trip. I knew this trip it was like my 10-year anniversary of living in Australia, so I was like, this is going to be a big trip for me, and I wanted to make sure that this trip was just like full of love. And I deliberately started meditating before that trip, knowing that I wanted to be in Australia. I wanted to kind of use this time to kind of reset myself and go to China and propose to my business partner in China what a full-time consultant would look like. So I went to Australia. I started meditating and practicing transcendental meditation, and quickly I learned through TM. I was like, "This is amazing. This form of meditation is just like, it is mind blowing." And the rewards I saw overnight was just absolute game changer. I was becoming calmer. I was like going into my subconscious and like accessing that, and it was just incredible to be able to just like so simply go within yourself and then come out. It was like going into like a 10-hour sleep for 20 minutes and then coming out again. And meditation was working for me. And I was living in this state of positivity. I was in Australia. I was around all my loved ones and like my non-blood family. And then I went back to China and I proposed to my business partner what a full-time consultant would look like. I put it all on paper saying I've been offered this promotion at Tentree, but at the same time, I want to be in a position in my life where I can do something quite big and impactful. And I put it all on paper. And then he turned around and said to me, "I don't want you to be a consultant. I want you to be the owner of this business." And I was just like, "What?" I was like, "That makes no sense, being offered ownership at this stage." And he was like, "No." He's like, "You believe in it so much and your passion for what you want to do in fashion is so incredible. I want to give you this opportunity." And I'm like, "What's the catch? Like, what is the catch?" And he was like, "There's no catch." He's like, "We both have the same values. We both want to do the same thing. I can support you financially." What he didn't have was like the English speaking side of understanding like the Western world to some extent. He doesn't speak any English either, and I don't speak Mandarin. So we're having these relationships over the course of these years through a translator. So my intuition was just like so sky high at this point, where I just knew this guy was so on it. And I didn't even have a conversation with him in a language. This is all like just through energy and understanding each other. And we talked about everything about what me relocating to China would look like, what that would be full time, my living expenses, just being realistic in my life, because I was on the verge of becoming a citizen in Canada. And I said to myself, I wanted to be in Canada full time. And I never envisioned China. But again, I was back in Guangzhou, and this city, the energy was speaking to me. The universe was speaking to me. My gut feeling was just like that alarm bells again from 2018 was all happening again. And I was like, this is meant to be. This is it. This is my calling. This is where I'm meant to be in my life. And there and then in Guangzhou, I said to him, let's do this. I accepted his offer. I went back to Canada. I quit my job. They offered me the promotion, and I turned it down. And they were like, what, you're moving to China? And I'm like, yeah, I'm moving to China. And at this point, China was just going through COVID. Like, so everyone was like, you're going to leave Canada and you're going to move to a country that really have a huge virus going on. People thought I was a stupid and an idiot. And I was like, I need to do it. This is my calling. This is my destiny. And I was still meditating twice a day, every day throughout this. So I just knew my intuition was at its highest. And then, yeah, I quit my job. And then what I said to myself, I was going to get my citizenship in February 2020. So I became a citizen. And then in March, I left Canada for good. And I said, before moving to China, let's move back to the UK and take a time out. So I moved back to the UK, but just to take a time out for myself. But I mean, it's been a crazy, crazy ride these last couple of years. But meditation has really guided me to basically making the biggest decision in my life. So it's been wild.
Amazing. I love how you use meditation to really connect with your intuition. And even when people around you are telling you the decision you're making is crazy, you really just commit to your intuition and to following what it's telling you, which is really sometimes harder than we think. It takes real courage.
Yeah, it's super hard. But I guess for me, the thing with TM and meditation that has made it so I've hit the ground running of it is that now looking back at my life, I've had so many serendipitous moments, and the universe controls everything. And it's all meant to be, and it's all happened for a reason, and that kind of that fate and destiny, and it is magic. And I've always understood that. I just didn't know what it was. But after connecting with meditation now and understanding holistically the big picture, I understand now, like, all that stuff it's all part of the part. It's all part of the journey. It's all part of the path. And the biggest thing I've learned now is that I believe my path is already it's already happened. It's about living it and just living it in the most positive and not burning myself out anymore. And that was the difference. It's like I couldn't continue living being under that amount of stress putting on myself, and I needed to live in this state of happiness and be equipped now. I mean, yeah, for sure, it's hard. I mean, there's always going to be day-to-day stresses, but with TM, it's every day. You're just cleansing yourself, and then over time, you'll finally become immune to stress, immune to anxieties, and all this stuff, and you'll be able to block it all out. And we don't need that stuff in our lives. We don't need that stuff moving forward. So it's all come together quite perfectly, and yeah, I mean, it's absolute magic.
I love how you describe that you really discovered that your path has already happened. And for you now, it's about living it in the most positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, obviously, you're using transcendental meditation or TM to really help you achieve that. But is there anything else that you use to make sure that you stay as positive as possible?
I mean, with TM, everything just comes with it. It just it makes you understand that without TM, you can be happy, and it's just TM is just like it's like your place to guide you back to go back within yourself. But I mean, everything is connected to meditation.
If you enjoy Going Conscious, please subscribe for a new episode every Wednesday. If you think your friends and networks would benefit from listening, please share this podcast of fulfillment and freedom with them. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. It's great to read what you think, and your support makes a big difference. Together, let's grow our courage and tools to transform and live the lives we really want to. As well as creating Going Conscious, I work as a transformation coach and conscious brand consultant. I'm on a mission to help holistically maximize conscious entrepreneurs to drive positive changes for themselves, others, and the planet. I can help you to transition and level up personally, and I can help your brand grow and make a bigger impact. To connect with me and find out more about how we can work together, find me on Instagram @NikkiTrott or on my website, nikkitrott.com. Please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you, and let's talk about your path of growth and development.
Obviously, living a vegan diet and being vegan, I mean, again, with TM, it teaches you about how to look after your body with what you're putting into it. So everything's connected. I mean, your diet, the way you eat throughout the day, these types of things, and all this stuff links to just basically operating the body, because the soul and the body are different things. Just making sure the vehicle that we're operating is operating correctly, and then yeah, I mean, then we'll keep it happy, and it's just about getting rid of all that crap we don't need in our bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how has your vegan diet contributed to your spiritual journey?
Yeah, I guess veganism is a state of consciousness that I've learned. I guess, but what I didn't realize was again how it is all connected to the big picture. So I chose to be vegan before I started meditating. I was in a long-term relationship where I couldn't become vegan because it's obviously harder when you're living with someone. But the minute I left that relationship, I went vegan overnight. And I guess, again, after finding TM, I learned that veganism is just all part of the journey and about understanding your decision making. And yeah, it's just a form of consciousness. It's a form of just you're always pushing yourself, being like, oh, should I be eating animals? Should I not be eating animals? To me, the way I see it is we just got conditioned wrong as kids growing up by society. It's just a conditioning thing. I mean, humanity just got it wrong, and we just now we're figuring it out, and that's through consciousness. We're making the right decisions, and so it all links up to the bigger picture.
Yeah, I love that. I feel the same. I also first went vegan for moral, ethical, environmental reasons and
Hmm.
had no expectation of any spiritual benefits actually. But then the spiritual benefits came strongly, and I completely resonate with what you said about really having the consciousness to make choices that feel completely good to you, that are based on your internal values rather than based on what people have conditioned you with. And it's so interesting, in the English language, how we even have different words for animals and then for when they're killed to be eaten, like pig and pork, and kind of trying to, distance
Yeah,
ourselves from what it is. And I always found it so strange. And a friend of mine, when their dogs would die or horses would die, and they were meat eaters, and I'd say, I don't understand why you bury them in the garden and don't eat them when you eat animals which other people have not given such a good life but killed.
definitely.
And it's just this conditioning
Hmm.
of this is food and this is not. And everybody has their own personal journey with this whole topic. But I completely agree that the spiritual benefits of being conscious about your choice, whatever your choice is so, so powerful in really stripping back and connecting with yourself and trusting yourself.
And that's it. I mean, everything starts with consciousness, and it starts with the individual. And I think what I've learned is I used to be a vegan activist. When I first turned vegan, like I'm a passionate guy. As I said, back to the whole Sagittarius thing, I'm a fire sign. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I will fight for something that I believe is fair. But what I realized being a vegan activist, like that isn't the route to change. That's not achieving anything. It's being too negative. And through meditation now, I've learned that it's a journey for everyone, and it's about being positive, and it's about stepping stones, and everyone's on a different journey. Each soul is at a different there's different states of how old souls are. I believe some souls have been around the planet maybe in 10 different bodies, and this is their final body before they move on to the bigger, the greater beyond. And then some souls come back for another go and another try and another try, and then it takes maybe 5 or 6 vehicles to figure out, oh, okay. Like I think my old man, I think when he dies, I seriously think he'll come back and he'll do it all over again because he's got some stuff to still figure out as a soul within himself. So veganism is like that, and it's a journey, and we need to make sure it's positive. And again, it's about the soul evolving to that state of consciousness. Some people find it quicker, some people find it a bit slower, but it's just it's a journey, and we've got to be positive about all these things. It's the same with sustainability. It's an incredibly complex subject, and it's very hard to change the world as one person. But if you're living in the highest state of consciousness and you're happy with yourself and you're loving yourself, naturally you'll start making better decisions that work with the planet.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I love how you bring sustainability and spirituality together there, because I think they are so intrinsically linked. And the
Hmm.
more that we love ourselves and the more that we understand that we can change our reality, the more we then look at the responsibility that we have to everything else. And I think for me also meditation has been really key in understanding the connection that we have with everything, with oneness, and seeing
Exactly.
that when you hurt the planet, you hurt yourself.
Hmm. Exactly. And this is where I built the company. I mean, I built the company in May last year. The idea was to start the business in October in China, but then after seeing what was happening with COVID in the UK and being here, I understand COVID is somewhat negative to a lot of people, but from a grand holistic planet Earth side of things, I believe it's one of the best things to happen to the planet. Is literally Mother Nature saying, "Hey, I'm going to shut you down for a second. I'm going to press the pause button, and you guys are going to have a time to think about how you want to play on this planet." And I was getting all these vibes, and I was linking up with Mother Nature like that, and I was like, "This is a great chance for me to start this business now, because what I'm trying to do in fashion is to make it greener, is to make it positive, is to make it as progressive as possible." And I was like, "There's no better time to do it than to do it right now and launch it while Mother Nature is giving us this chance to say, hey, when you come out of this, make sure you come out and you change your ways, because what will happen next after this will be maybe something even grander and even bigger, because Mother Nature is so powerful." So I launched a company in May. I started to put the pillars of the business on paper. And I was like, how are we going to build this company? And I was like, these are my values. I want all these values to come into the business. So sustainability, transparency, veganism, giving back and being mindful of our carbon. And I was like, these are our 4 values, but this is when I started to really ride this spiritual wave through meditation. And because I was living in the UK and I wasn't traveling as much, I was going very deep within myself and really understanding the universe and understanding consciousness. And I had a meditation teacher in Bournemouth who I was speaking with, and I read his book. And in his book, he explained that sustainability, giving back as a human, and kind of eating a plant-based diet and these types of things, these all form from the tree of consciousness. These are all branches that come from this greater tree. And after reading this, like, it was like literally one sentence where he wrote this, I was like, that's exactly it. Because for me, I was working in all these silos in my life. I've been a designer specializing in sustainability, and you kind of banging your head against the wall, being like, oh, what else can I do now? And as a vegan, you're like, I'm doing this. And then after learning about consciousness, I was like, the 5th value is meditation and wellness and raising consciousness. So then I started to build the company based on that 5th value being the most important value. And then from that value of meditation and consciousness, those 4 other values of sustainability, transparency, plant-based living, and giving back and offsetting carbon, these 4 things will naturally radiate from that higher state. So the key with any business and any individual is once we start operating at that higher state of consciousness, and this is why it's very tough for larger organizations, because they're so spread out with their, who's owning the company. There's not one person operating that company at that higher state of consciousness. Whereas a small business, it's quite easy because the owners are the ones calling most of the shots. Whereas a bigger organization, they have investors, they have a board. You need that entire board to be meditating together. So I just learned all this, and I was like, let's build this company based on consciousness. And then, one thing led to another. And what I realized as a startup is that it is, I'm throwing myself in the deep end. I'm going out there saying we're trying to build one of the most sustainably progressive factories on the planet. And I needed to have that insurance of not kind of putting all these big words out there. And this is where kind of falling back on consciousness is key. And at the end of the day, if the individual is loving themselves, naturally all these other things will happen. And it's kind of like my get out of jail free card, but it all starts with going within ourselves as individuals. And then from that big collective consciousness will change.
Yes, I love that. I completely agree with you. It all starts with going within ourselves, and then the collective consciousness can change from there. We have to do the work, each of us individually, beforehand, and at the same time in parallel. It never stops, does it?
No, it doesn't. We just got to keep doing it, and we got to. That's the thing. You can't promote it. You can't be like a meditation activist. That's the complete opposite way of doing it. It's about just loving everyone. And this is what I've learned now, like in business, there's a lot of egos out there. I could write a book. I've got this idea of writing a book called Navigating Egos in Fashion, because there's so many,
yes.
there's so many out there. And again, with TM, going back within myself twice a day, every day now, I'm able to navigate these egos, because I go within myself and it's just like, you just got to love that person. You can't get upset by them. You can't live in fear of that person or how annoying or frustrating they are. And then you just got to go back to loving them. And then if you love them through an email or a message or a phone call, you'll get more back from that person. And it's the same with anything. It's the same with everything. It all starts with love.
It all starts with love. I love that. It does. Absolutely. And sometimes it can be so hard, especially in fashion. I think you would need more than one book to talk about navigating egos in fashion. Oh my gosh, a trilogy. Yeah. But it's a great challenge for you, right? It's a great opportunity for growth.
This is just humanity, really. This is the thing. I'm finding it a little harder now because I feel like I am a little isolated. Obviously, there's incredible businesses out there that are very similar in mindset, but for us, we're trying to take on the juggernaut that is the luxury fashion world, and we're trying to convert a leather goods factory into a plant-based factory, and it takes time and it's hard, but it all starts with these individuals. It's waking up, and it's kind of coming out the state of ignorance that we just came out of with the grand conjunction that just happened in space of Saturn and Jupiter. That was at the age of Aquarius. Like, I mean, things are starting to change now, and we're starting to go through this new shift in energy where I strongly believe humanity is going to wake up now, and it's not going to happen overnight, but we're going to start seeing a huge enlightenment shift. I hope so.
Yes, I hope so too. And I do believe, I want to believe it, but I do believe it. Things are changing. There's a lot shifting in the world, and it's incredible to be part of this time.
Definitely. I mean, we're seeing it with the vegan food movement. Like, this is a great example of like collective consciousness. Sure, there's people going vegan for different reasons, but ultimately the bigger picture is understanding to work and live within nature and support that. And that's a great example of like this shifting in consciousness. And now fashion is always going to be one of the harder ones to change and one of the more slower ones to wake up. But we are starting to see it shift. And I mean, this is why I quit my job to move to China, because I do see so much potential from a business standpoint to really accommodate this shift of consciousness and do everything in the best possible way. So I'm pretty confident now. But again, it might not happen in my lifetime, but all we can do as individuals is to enjoy the ride, enjoy it, and don't get frustrated by it. And this is the thing I've learned now, is that I've had an incredible journey up until this point, but moving forward, I don't want to operate in stress. I don't want to operate in fear. I want to enjoy this ride. And for sure, it's not what I can't control everything, but what I can control is myself and how I carry myself through my business and through others. And that's, I think everyone needs to kind of to learn that lesson moving forward, is just really enjoy it. And once you become part of the bigger picture and you understand what's going to happen next, I think you start to enjoy it a bit more.
Yeah, it's really linked to vision. And so, how do you see things changing now in the fashion industry with the work that you're doing?
So I mean our focus is plant-based levers. So I mean the word leather will quickly not be used anymore in the industry, because it's like plant-based leather is associated with, you know what I mean, animals. So it's going to be just plant-based materials. But we're starting to see this huge shift now of innovation with like mycelium. Like Stella McCartney is a great example of a very conscious company run by a very conscious, you know what I mean, her her dad, Paul, was practicing. He practices transcendental meditation. Like he's been out to India with the Beatles, and they've all joined Maharishi in meditation. So we're starting to see Stella McCartney is a great example, leading the way with mycelium, which is a mushroom-based material. There's other materials out there, like stuff coming from cactuses, apple, pineapples. There's so much incredible innovation using greener waste, fruit waste, and we're starting to see all this because people don't want to be working with animal hides anymore. People don't want to be supporting that side of the industry anymore. So we're starting to see this shift now on the leather side of things, where I think, similar to the vegan movement, it's a, from a financial standpoint, it's like $1 trillion industry to tap into, and we're starting to see these innovations really take off. Right now, most of our work is done with cactus and apple. We use a lot of hemp and organic cotton, but it's these innovations using food waste and using plants to make materials that's really exciting. And in the next couple of years, we're going to start seeing a really big movement more commercially to make it more available to the masses. Right now, like Adidas and Stella McCartney, the Kering Group, Lululemon, they're kind of in a consortium to use this mycelium-based material, which is great. But right now, to everyone else, it's not ready just yet. So in a couple of years, I think we're going to see this tremendous shift from moving away from animal leather to vegan leathers. And that's just an example of consciousness. That's an example of brands going. I mean, some brands obviously follow the dollars. They follow where the money is, but this is the consumer speaking now. The consumer is saying, I don't want to buy leather. I don't want that material anymore. I want something else. I don't want to have something that has plastic in it either, because of the plastic problems. So now it's really pushing innovators to really come up with these incredible materials And we're just basically, from a handbag and bag perspective, we're just transitioning all of our products that we make for our brands and our clients from leather into these vegan leathers, and at the same time promoting consciousness along the way. So I think in the next couple of years, we're going to start seeing a huge boom. In 10 years, I think in fashion, we're going to see a tremendous shift. And it's very exciting what's going to happen in the industry. Circularity as well. Like the circular economy is just untapped right now. And getting into this mindset of renting more product, being more conscious about if you're going to a wedding or you're going to the horse races, do you need to buy an outfit for that day or can you rent it? And getting into that mindset is really exciting, renting products rather than buying everything and putting it in your closet. So it's going to happen and it's super exciting.
Yes, absolutely. It is. And so, what does personal success look like to you? And how has this changed from maybe the start of your career?
Oh, what a question. Personal success. I guess, as a kid, learning more about myself now, being like this Sagittarius dragon that I've learned so much about, my personality type, being ambitious. I guess for me, growing up, obviously, success was about having enough money to live a certain life. Whereas now I've learned that, money isn't really my priority. I want to make money. I want to make a lot of it because I can make more impact by having lots of money. But I'm not driven by having that lifestyle that we all kind of envision. Like that's how society's drives our mindsets growing up. It's like, oh, I want to be a celebrity. I want to have these things. Now, after finding meditation, I realized that that's all bollocks. Jim Carrey is the perfect guy who quotes that. He quotes, I wish everyone can be rich and famous as quickly as possible to realize that isn't the solution to happiness. And that is just so true. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, is that I've nipped it now. I understand that isn't success to me. Success to me is to hopefully build an incredible factory in China first, and then hopefully empower the rest of the industry to follow our lead. If they want to copy us, that's fine. I don't care. Copying us means more progressive factories. But I would love to kind of take it to each continent and basically open Veshins on multiple different continents and basically promote consciousness through fashion. So that success to me is starting to see people meditating more often, and hopefully people are just realizing that Western society, the way we've been conditioned to like what success isn't the solution. So success to me is really just people loving themselves and seeing that, and hopefully I can support them doing that.
Beautiful. And so, is there a key takeaway or message from our conversation today that you'd like to share?
For anyone that isn't meditating, I can't speak more towards how meditation's changed my life and given me the understanding for like the bigger picture, understanding how the body works, understanding diet, understanding the big picture. It's an absolute game changer to go within yourself and to tap into your subconscious. So I'd say the biggest takeaway from this is about going conscious, which is what we're here to talk about. So yeah, just love yourself, love your family, love the people around you. Every time you walk out on the street, try and say a hello to as many people as possible, because it makes you feel so good, and people will be surprised when they say, oh my God, that person said hi to me. These are the kind of things that need to start changing in society. So that'd be my takeaway. Just lots of love.
Lots of love. Gorgeous. And Joey, is there a book that you've read recently and loved, or just one of your favorites that you can recommend to us?
Oh, my favorite book of all time is called Papillon. So it's about the true story guy in France, Henry Charrier, I believe is his name, Henri Charrier, and he basically got wrongly convicted at like 17, sent to French Guiana in prison for life, and he went on like this journey, I think like 70 years in jail, going through solitary, escaping jail, And you read this book and you're like, this is a true story, and it is absolutely mental. And it's, incredible tenacity of this guy. His entire life was about escaping prison over and over again, and just how powerful the mind is and how resilient a human body can be, and the strength. So that's an incredible read. When you read that book, you're like, this actually happened. And you got to pinch yourself. So that's an amazing book of human resilience.
Wow, amazing. Thank you. And lastly, where's the best place for listeners to find you online?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so just Joey Pringle. And then if you want to support the company, at Veshin Factory, so VESHIN Factory is the Instagram. So yeah, Instagram and LinkedIn is the best place. And then obviously through Instagram, you'll see our website. And if there's any people in the fashion world listening in, any brands who, I don't know, might be listening in, would love to connect with you and to start working on your projects and building more conscious collections together.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Joey. It's been wonderful speaking with you today.
Thank you, Nikki. Amazing to be here. And I love the conversation of consciousness. It's my favorite thing ever.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with the lovely Joey. I love how he shows us how it is the development within ourselves and connection with our own consciousness which enables us to make the positive impact on the world we're here to make, and help us to play our part in raising consciousness as a whole. I believe that our intuition is our most important guide on this journey, and I've talked about the importance of intuition on my own personal journey on previous Going Conscious episodes too. If you are looking to connect more deeply with your intuition, you can listen to our special episode, number 18, where I give you a 10-minute meditation to connect with your intuition. You can use this every morning. And if you love it, please share it with your friends and social networks. I really enjoyed listening to Joey tell us about how he has bridged cultural and language barriers with his partner in China and connected with him on a much deeper spiritual level, aligning their missions. The fashion industry certainly needs more people like Joey to help bridge the gap between intention and action when it comes to conscious production. Joey also reminds us to learn to let go of frustration and enjoy the ride. When we accept and expect that challenges and resistance will be part of our progression, we are able to glide through them with more ease and continue on our path, level-headed and with focus and peace. Are there any frustrations that you need to let go of right now? Are you willing to let them go? If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe now. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and short review. If you think people you know might benefit from listening to Going Conscious, please share it with them. I know I get much of my inspiration from podcasts which are shared with me. For all episodes, our library and more, visit goingconscious.com. Your support to spread this positive message of fulfillment and freedom means so much. As well as hosting Going Conscious, I help conscious entrepreneurs to transition and unleash their power and purpose with my transformation coaching and conscious brand consulting work. Discover more on Instagram at Nikki Trott or on my website, nikkitrott.com. I'd love to hear from you and to talk about your goals, questions, or how we can work together. And if I don't hear from you before then, see you next Wednesday on the next episode of Going Conscious. As always, live your freedom.